Hey everybody, St. Paul here, and welcome to episode 16 of Music on the Run. And I'm in an airplane today, that's right, with my buddy Brad Heck. And it's apropos because our next guest is in the Fearless Flyers and Vulfpeck and has an incredible solo career. Corey Wong is next on Music on the Run. Hey everybody, St. Paul here, and welcome to episode 16 of Music on the Run. Man, I can't believe it. This is our fourth Zoom interview here in the Peterson basement. We've been making music down here since 1958. A few good notes and a lot of bad notes have been played down here, but we've been having fun, and it is so cool to broadcast from my family home. All right, let's get to it. My next guest is an incredible musician, writer, producer, and artist whose career has absolutely skyrocketed in the last few years. For example, he plays with Vulfpeck, the Fearless Flyers, to name a few, and he has an incredible solo career. And he's one of the funniest dudes I've ever met in my entire life. Let's welcome the pizza man himself, Corey Wong.
What's up, man? Thanks for having me. Thanks for that flattering intro.
Well, dude, it's so funny because I've known you for a lot of years, and it has been such a joy to watch a good guy and a talented musician like you having a great wave. Man, it's so fun. Really fun.
I appreciate it.
Where are you right now, by the way? You in Minnesota?
I'm in Minneapolis. I'm chilling, dude. I'm at home. Yeah, as I have been the last few months.
Oh, yeah. So things have changed just a little bit in the last 3 months for every musician friend of mine. But you know what? You never stay stagnant, ever.
Yeah, I try. One of the things about that is like, once I'm doing something creative, a lot of people think, or a lot of people go through their process and it drains them from things. But I really feel like the more creative I am with things, the more creative I become. And then the more inspiration comes. So when I'm working on projects and when I'm working on things, rather than draining me out, it feels like it fills me up even more. It's like a flower that blossoms rather than a gas tank that empties.
Well, I'm sure you've got a million different ideas, but what's cool about you is that you don't sit by yourself. Well, at least I don't think you do. Sit by yourself and go, I got to do everything. Me. You go like, wouldn't it be great to have Michael Bland on something? Wouldn't it be great to have Sonny on something? Wouldn't it be great to have Joe on something? You pass these nuggets out to different people, and you bring people together like somebody else I used to work with by the name of Prince. He recognized people, and he would bring the most unsuspecting people together that you wouldn't necessarily think would work. And I think you've done a great job of that. You're recognizing talent, bringing people together. And you know what else I want to point out to you is that you look like you're having a damn blast.
Well, I am. I genuinely am having such a good time doing it. I sometimes can't believe that it's my job. I sometimes feel like one day I'm going to wake up and the bubble's going to burst and it's going to be like, joke's up.
Yep. Just kidding.
All right. Hope you enjoyed it. And,
man.
I have been. So I just try to keep, enjoying it and counting myself blessed for the things that have come and continue to come. And yeah, it's been awesome.
How many records have you put out in 2020?
Well, I started January with a record called Elevator Music for an Elevated Mood. And that is one I had worked on in 2019. It's kind of a part two to the record I released before called Motivational Music for the Syncopated Soul.
Right.
So it was kind of a two-part series. I wrote a bunch of music, recorded a bunch of music over the course of like a year and a half.
Right.
And and it was just like, I kind of have two collections of music. I don't want to pull it out. I feel like releasing a 20-song record is a lot to ask of a listener in today's day and age.
True.
And
But that's smart, though. I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to absorb. Yeah, so I mean, I even noticed that sometimes when my favorite artists put out a record that's like 14 tracks, my favorite artists, sometimes I'm still like, oh man, that's going to be a lot to get through. It's like, dude, just put the record on. But I understand the I guess, buyer psychology of streaming where we, are set, like we have a set amount of time we're willing to absorb some material, and it's different for movies and it's different for different types of art, whatever. Like
right.
But, like when I'm in a museum, I won't sit and look at one piece of artwork for 30 minutes. I have, but it's not something I regularly will do. I'll normally, spend a handful of minutes on each piece and then continue to move on in a similar way where I think people will absorb that amount of songs and then that sort of thing. So I started their year with kind of a part 2 record that I had been working on the year before. And then I released a live record, Corey Wong and the Metropole Orchestra.
Oh man. First of all, that, let me see it. Let me see it. Pull it out. Show it the listeners and the video people. Man, that's just beautiful.
Thank you.
How does that? Because I'm going to do a gig with Vince Mendoza, who did the orchestration. Correct?
He was the conductor. He didn't do the orchestrations. He
didn't.
Conducted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it takes a while to get to that point. So how long was that in the planning?
Well, they emailed me. They reached out to me. I mean, I've been a huge fan of theirs for years.
Right.
Just with so many projects. They did projects with Schofield, Shaka Khan, Pat Metheny, Snarky Puppy, Jacob Collier. There's so many amazing artists that they've collaborated with that I've been a huge fan of. And anyways, they hit me up. Their artistic director emailed me and said, hey, we see what you're doing. We love what you're doing. We have this kind of future of jazz program where we want to bring in budding artists to be a part of this and put on, basically do like a small tour and potentially record the stuff, make a record together, make an album together. And this was probably in April of 2019.
Okay.
And they said, yeah, we're looking to do programming. We do programming a few years out. So we're looking at maybe 2023 or 2022, something like that. I was like, absolutely. Let me know whenever. I'm down. And they're like, okay, we'll be in touch. In about a year out, we'll start, or a couple years out, we'll look at material and we can start looking at arrangements. Then a couple weeks later, they said, hey, something's going on. We're wondering if actually you do this show 6 months from now.
Perfect.
Like, yeah. I mean, I'm just going to say yes because it's
of course
such a
you
fun.
Are.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, now immediately I need to start thinking of the material we want to do, thinking of how to do the arrangements and that sort of thing. So basically compiled a list of 18 tunes that I thought would work really well. My stuff, and with Cody Fry, who was the special guest on that, who sang. And
Cody's
we just
great,
got cracking
by the
on
way.
the arrangements. Yeah, Cody's amazing.
I love listening to him. He's great.
Yeah. So then I just emailed them the tunes, emailed them my rhythm charts, and then also Michael Nelson's horn charts for everything.
Oh, cool.
Here's the recordings. Here's the studio recordings. Some of them have horns, some of them don't. Then here's a live version with the added horn section. And then I gave a pretty detailed description, like, okay, in the A sections, this is dynamically and, texture-wise what I'm looking for. B sections, this, bridge, this, just to kind of give a pretty clear vision. So when the arrangers got to it, okay, this is what he's looking for, but also enough space in there for the arrangers and orchestrators to put a little bit of their own fingerprint on it. And it was just amazing. They had about 4 arrangers that just knocked it out of the park.
Did they send you the arrangements back and forth? Did you get to comment on them, or did you just go out there and go, it's going to be what it's going to be?
He said, so I talked to Vince Mendoza about it. He's like, yeah, normally they just do the arrangements because the artists are just kind of, yeah, whatever you think. But if you want to, we can send them to you and we can give a little feedback. The majority of them they sent to me, and there was a couple tunes where it's like, this voicing is weird, or there was one case in one song where it's like, this they were hearing something, they were really hammering on like a C13 9, where I really just wanted basically a straight up C7.
So for all you runners out there, you don't need to worry about all this technical music stuff. This is, don't worry about that.
But there was a lot of, I mean, for the most part, it was like, this is amazing, this is great. And then for those listening, you know, a conductor's job is to make sure that everybody in the orchestra is working together to kind of guide through that, but also through the rehearsals, acting in a similar way with me as a music director for everything that's going on. When he would see something in the chart that when we played it in the room was like, this feels a little too thick here, or there's a little too much going on. He was kind of acting also as a reductionist. Hey, should we pull this out? Or hey, should we make them a lot quieter and that sort of thing? So between he and I, we started to do that. So Vince is, in some ways he did help with the arranging just in his conductor position because he was using his instincts on the arrangements and whatnot to kind of get him to a place where we all felt like it was working the best.
Well, I commend you to be able that you were able to separate yourself, first of all, without freaking out, because what an honor, number one. Number two, to go, okay, I'm the featured artist here, but I'm going to sit back and critique and figure out exactly what my arrangement should be. I mean, that is the true sign of a pro, that you could separate yourself and sit back and make those critical judgments and arrangement changes basically on the fly. But you had somebody in your corner who was really helping you along too. Let's go back a little ways first. So you and I have known each other a long time, man.
Yes.
Which is really cool. And that makes the journey for me watching you so much sweeter for me. But you're not originally from Minneapolis, but you grew up here.
I was born in New York. I was born in upstate New York in Poughkeepsie.
Okay.
At Vassar Hospital on campus at Vassar College. Anyways,
Oliver Lieber went to college there, of all things.
Really?
He did.
That dude's funky.
He is.
That dude's sick.
I'd love to see you two on a hit together.
That'd be fun.
We'll make that happen.
I like that. My family only moved there because my dad. So my family is from Minnesota. My dad worked for IBM for his entire career, but he was relocated to Poughkeepsie for a 5-year period, and that's when I happened to be born.
Got it.
So family was there because my dad had to relocate for his job for a few years. I was born there. We came back to Minneapolis, basically, but like before I started kindergarten. So once I started school, I mean, Minneapolis is home. I don't know a single person in Poughkeepsie. I have not been back since we left, and I couldn't name a single street or restaurant or the address we lived.
So you're from Minneapolis?
Yeah, I'm from Minneapolis.
St. Paul?
Yeah. I grew up in Fridley.
Oh, you grew up in Fridley?
Yes.
Aha.
But Minneapolis, Twin Cities, as you know, it's all.
Yep. So how did your family react when you told them that you had this passion for music? Were they supportive?
Super supportive. Now, I don't come from a family of musicians. I have an aunt who's a musician who like played in the church choir and stuff like that, played piano. But my parents are not musicians, but they're big music fans. My dad's a huge music freak. I mean, you've seen him all around the Twin Cities at shows and whatnot.
That's right.
But he was a big music fan, so he was excited to, in some way, kind of vicariously live through me as a musician. Some of his best friends. Oh, you know some of his friends. He went to high school with Scooter and with Dick Shopto and with Brian Peters.
You gotta be kidding. See, I did not know that.
Yeah, so a lot of these, and for anybody who's listening, these are some cats that play around town, have played on like session guys, Paul's friends of Paul's. They're musicians in the Twin Cities. And my dad went to high school with those guys. Brian Peters lived with my parents when they first got married, I believe.
Wow.
Anyways, in the same house. But so my dad was around music. He was a fan of all kinds of music. So he was really supportive. And, oddly enough, by the time I realized I should do music as a career,
right,
they were like, yeah, Of course you should. This is yeah, quit messing around doing your little science degree. Go play music.
Wow. So let's go there. You were at the University of Minnesota
Yep.
first,
Yep.
pursuing what?
Well, when I was in high school, I worked for an architect as a drafter.
Wow.
And kind of an assistant. So strange thing. So we had a CAD, computer-aided drafting design program that was really great, and I just absorbed all of it. I got really good at it. By the time I was in 10th grade, I had taken basically the entire high school's worth of courses and was really passionate about it, along with music. So I got a job for an architect because there was an architect that came to the job fair, and I was curious about what that whole thing was like. So I worked for an architect. I figured maybe I want to be an architect. Then I did my first semester in college in architecture, and it was not, I loved drafting, but I didn't love architecture. Or being what it would be to be an architect. So then I started, I was really into the science classes that I had. So I basically morphed over to like physiology and biology in that thing. And that's so elusive. I don't even know what I would have done. Like maybe gone to med school or something. I don't know. I'd still be in school now. Anyways.
Right. Yeah.
But then it was like, all right, this is fun. This is cool.
You were gigging this whole time though, right?
I was gigging as a jam band. I had a band with my buddies from high school, and we still were just kind of playing around town that way. But I wasn't out working. It wasn't my career. I was teaching music lessons and stuff for money. But then finally when I decided, all right, forget it. I'm transferring to a music college, go to music school. Boom. That's when I started really just going full steam into the music thing and then started gigging.
God, so you went over to McNally Smith, a college that is no longer, I think, active, but a lot of great musicians came out of there.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what our first gig was together. Maybe a gig with my sister Patty. I can't remember, to be honest with you.
A Patty Peterson gig.
Yeah.
Or one of the Starkey events.
Oh, sure.
Because I was hanging with Michael Nelson, I think maybe before we were hanging. Probably that. Or maybe a session with Adi Yeshaya.
Who knows?
But I feel like it maybe was one of the Starkey events that you were conducting on.
I actually was. Yeah, I was conducting for that, and it was always fun to have you on that. I remember one specific story from this, and I think we touched on this because thank you, by the way, for coming on my EV takeover. A couple of weeks back. That was really cool. But I think we might have told this story then about you getting on stage and playing with Gene Simmons, man, and he had a field day with you.
That was a blast. I don't know what Gene is like outside of our experience with him, but he was such a cool cat. Like, he shows up, he's like, "Hey kid, you wireless?" And you looked at me, you're like, "Please tell me you're wireless." You gave me that look like, "Young man, you better be wireless." I was like, "Yeah, I'm wireless."
Yeah,
he goes,
"Bring
you
it.
better get out here and come to the center of the stage for that guitar solo." And that was, we had a riot, and
it was unreal.
He was hamming it up with me. It was so much fun.
I have footage of that somewhere that if you don't have it, I will send it to you.
Yeah.
From rehearsal and all that stuff. Unbelievable.
Yeah,
you
was
and
fun.
Gene Simmons.
Oh, and you know where else? I don't remember if this was earlier or later, but we were doing an event at First Avenue, raising money for one of Bobby Z from Prince and the Revolution, one of his gigs, where Atmosphere was late for the gig because they were flying in, and it was a thing with like Questlove and Princess Maya Rudolph thing or whatever. And Atmosphere was supposed to open the show, and then Mint Condition and Alexander O'Neill and all this stuff. I was playing in the house band with most of those bands, but because Atmosphere was late, they were trying to figure out what to do. You were in the crowd, and so was Brian Setzer.
That's right.
And they were like, should we, like, I think Bobby was scrambling, like, "Brian, will you come up and play a few tunes?" And you came up and played bass.
Yeah.
And I don't remember if Questlove played drums or who was playing drums.
I can't remember.
But I remember playing on stage for that. It was like, oh my gosh. And you were calling the changes to these tunes. You're like, yeah, I know the Stray Cats catalog. I know the Setzer catalog. Just look at me, man. Yeah, obviously follow me. Brian's got a guitar. He's going to do his thing. But when he says it's time, if you need to rip. I remember you just telling me like, look, it's game time. And I was like, all right, I'm in. Yeah.
Oh, that's so funny. Well, you and I we've had fun together. I remember
totally.
When I ran this college here in Minnesota called Minneapolis Media Institute, I was in need of a Logic teacher, and you were like, I'm game. Sure. So you came for, I don't even know how long, a semester maybe. And so this is
before 2 semesters.
Before the wave came your way. You were still working it all out, baby. And I think, what's really funny about when I look at that, and I wonder how much, as you look back at these things, how much of that was building you into being able to handle what you have going on today. You were juggling so many different things, doing that for me, playing in the bar scene, doing all sorts of different things. And now, being where you are today, you have 20 million things on your plate. Do you think that influenced you and helped you to be able to handle where you are now?
Totally. I mean, you touched on one of them, which is just learning how to juggle a lot of different things in a lot of different realms.
Yeah.
So it's one thing to be able to handle learning a bunch of tunes for gigs and memorizing them and just going out and crushing the gigs. But then also, in the modern age of being an artist, there's a certain expectation of a level of being a producer yourself. And I had the Logic skills just from my own college experience and working in studios and doing that for necessity and for my job. But having to explain a DAW to a group of students in a way that helped them understand it, try to inspire them. These kids were all working on Pro Tools and they were comfortable with Pro Tools. This is like, all right, I need to inspire these kids to see what another DAW could offer them and why they might use it and what are some of the similarities, and then just really being able to explain it. That was, in some ways a sales gig, because I'm trying to sell these kids on the idea that Logic is a viable option if you connect with it. Or, there's certain ways that, it's cheaper, it comes with a bunch of instruments and blah, 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 whatever. Whichever you use, doesn't matter. But teaching it and explaining my process of producing songs in Logic, mixing in Logic, it was really fun because it helped me shed and really have to hone in my own skills to show it. Like, okay, it's not just, I don't know, I put an EQ on this thing. It's, well, I use this EQ for this reason. I use this compressor for this reason. And here are some of the things that you can do to build your own software instruments or use the ones that are available. And it was really fun. Yeah, it helped me to just get the basic skills and also people skills in a different way that have always just, everything that I've done has been building me up to the responsibilities that I have now.
Absolutely. And you're right. By the way, for those of you listening, what we're talking about here is the modern way of making music in a sequencer. Basically, that's what we do. We can make it in a computer. We can play live. So there are different types of, or different brands of sequencers or digital audio workstations as they're known. So that's what Corey came and did for me. But after that, you and I called you for a gig. I recommended you for a gig with Brian White, and you and I had some fun with him. But more so, I think that led you down. Was that one of the things that got you down to Nashville?
Yeah, there is so much of a just direct line that goes across. I was trying to figure this out the other day. I was thinking, I should really trace all of these steps back because, we met from whatever it was. We were trying to figure that out. And then you recommended me for this Brian White gig. And Brian then asked me to come do a cruise gig with him on the country music cruise. I went and did that for a week. And the bass player there was a guy named Walt Smith, who was helping manage a artist named Jason Gray. Walt recommended me to play guitar with Jason Gray. I would go do shows with him. And then there was a festival that Jason did with a guy named Brandon Heath. I started playing with Brandon. They shared a band. I went on tour with Brandon. Brandon was on tour, and they used a house band for the 3 artists that were there. I eventually started playing with those other artists down in Nashville, and all of a sudden there was 6 or 7 artists in Nashville I was playing for. One of those people, along with Steve Gould, who's a drummer from here and was playing with Sarah Bareilles, then started playing with Ben Rector. Between Steve and some people in Nashville, they recommended me to Ben Rector to join his band because he was looking for a 5th member or a 5th person to join his touring group. So then I started playing with Ben, started touring a lot more with Ben, met some of the guys in Wolfpack through the Bunkers thing. Like there's like 2 different avenues that have all led to so many different things.
So you had a Nashville side and you had a Minneapolis side.
Yeah.
Two cities pulling for you.
Yeah.
Well, because for obvious reasons, you're talented and you are fun to be around. And those are 2 things when you're on the road that you need. You know, you don't want to be with the guy who's not fun to be on a bus with for 23 hours. And, but we have those kind of things. Explain a little bit about the Wolfpack gig. And if you guys don't know who that is, go to Spotify or wherever you get your music, go check them out because they're an entity unto themselves. They're incredible. So explain to me how that happened.
Sure. I was playing, for people that aren't familiar, there's a club called Bunkers in Minneapolis. There's a band called Dr. Mambo's Combo that's been doing a gig for 30 years.
35 years, something like that.
And, Prince would come and hang out there, and a lot of the band was Prince alumni, that sort of thing. And the guitarist, Billy Franzi, had rotator cuff surgery because he had a bowling incident. We'll stop and acknowledge that. So I was subbing for him for maybe 6 months.
Wow.
I don't remember, something like that, because he was recovering. And I was hanging out there already a lot, sitting in, and I would sub for him once in a while before that. But while he was gone, that was a time when some of the other cats from Wolfpack were in town playing for another artist. They came, hung out. That's where I met them. And eventually we just hit it off as friends. Like I could, it's that sort of thing where you can tell who the musicians are in the audience. When you're playing on stage, you can kind of tell in a club who the musicians are. The way that they're watching the fingers and the gear and the way they're pointing and talking to each other, you know who the musicians are. Right. I was like, oh man, these guys look my age, look like they would be my friends. I can tell they're musicians. Why don't I know them? They must be from out of town. So after the set, Theo and Jack, and I don't remember who else was there at the time, came up and introduced themselves. We hit it off, became great friends, eventually started jamming a lot together. And then it just kind of all bubbled into friendship leading into playing more together and then kind of becoming a part of the band and that sort of thing. So yeah, it's funny because I think Jack, who's the band leader of Wolfpack, his initial intention was for it to be an internet band. Yeah. And it was just a YouTube act. I remember the first couple sessions that I ever did with Wolfpack. He's like, all right, guys, let's remember, we're a YouTube act. We're not a band. We're a YouTube act. It's funny just because...
That's a good mindset to get in. That's inspiration for you.
Yeah, it's like, it's a different... Like, it's like, oh, yeah, we're making a record, but at the same time, there's video, and that's a big part of it, And Jack has had a vision for the band from the beginning, and then eventually the popularity started to just grow and grow and grow, and people wanted to see it live. And starting a few years ago, started touring a lot more.
Right.
And then, our last gig that we played was in September, which was at Madison Square Garden. So it's like, it's grown and grown from...
Not one night.
No, it was just one night.
Was it one night? I thought you did multiple nights.
It was only one night.
Oh, no, I'm really
But it was sold out.
Wait, now you're not signed. You don't have a manager. How does this happen?
The internet. The internet's amazing. God, and I think also just like...
Good music.
Yeah, that. And we have Joe Dart, who's like the best bass player of our generation.
By the way, please tell him I'm a huge fan, would you?
I will.
Please tell him that. He's a bad dude.
And just so many... there's a band of characters. It's like we're all our own kind of character on our instruments, but also in real life in a funny and cool way. And you have Jack, who is a visionary. And, you know, the Billboard and Rolling Stone articles are like, this band sold out Madison Square Garden without a manager. It's like, yeah, but Jack also really is the manager of the band.
Okay.
And, you know, we don't have a traditional management thing and there's no label, but Jack runs Wolf Records, which is its own independent thing with only Wolfpack and Fearless Flyers on it. But Jack really is a visionary. And the thing that I tell people is you see somebody who is a complete master of their craft. You watch Chris Thile play the mandolin. You watch Yo-Yo Ma play the cello. You watch Brad Mehldau play the piano or Keith Jarrett play the piano. Yeah. The internet is Jack's mandolin.
Is that right?
He just gets it.
Wow.
And he understands the internet in a different way. And that kind of is, you know, a fun way that he's been able to express himself with the band and with the way that he's built it through the internet. And it's incredible to see because I've watched his ideas flow. I've spitballed with him he's had so many ideas that I've heard him talk about that are brilliant.
Yeah.
It's like, I know they're coming and I can't wait for them to come out. Or some that, you know, he's thought of. It's like, I don't think that would work. And watching him go through that process and think through that, it's like, wow, you know, and that's inspired me and helped me learn a lot and start to think about the way that I do things on the internet. You know, it's like playing with other amazing musicians. It calls you up to a higher level. And
it's funny. You'll appreciate this. I'm going to interrupt you because I want to give you a compliment because I can tell that you learned from your experience there and you took it to a whole new level. You Coreyized it, right? And starting with your green screen band, go check that out, you guys. Go check out Corey's. Please, before we get off here, make sure we know how to find you and see all your videos. But then you started doing these things where you would play live in the studio and do a one camera. Whether Wolf started it or you started it, I don't know. But it would be one camera on a Steadicam, turning it with a certain filter to look grainy and stuff like that. People all over town, hey, just Corey Wong it, man, just do that. So you became that guy.
That was a Jack thing. That was part of Jack's vision. That single shot iPhone, easy thing, and then it actually. So that I started by doing the green screen thing. I would spend hours making these videos, trying to, you know, and developing a sound, and a look, right, developing a thing.
Yep.
And then it's like, oh, I should do some of these where it's the session thing, where people just see you in the room, feel like they're there watching. And those videos got more response than the ones that took me a ton of time to do. So it's like, all right, screw it. I'm going to do, if that's what people are digging, it is so much easier for me to do that. And Jack, he said that all the time. He's like, just do one camera. People will see the thing. And it also, there's a different level of pressure, as you know. It's like, this is the take. It's on camera and we're recording it at the same time. It's going to be the take. So let's get it right.
Right. It works so well. And it's so funny because I come from the school a generation or so before you where everything has to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Perfect, meaning especially visually. So you spend thousands and thousands of dollars trying to get this right. And what people really want to see now is the raw, real stuff. So it took me a really long time to figure that. I'm like, that's not me. I gotta do it this way, and I got my way, and all these things like that. And then I've just did the one camera shoot. It's beautiful, man. It captures a moment in time that's real, heartfelt, and you can look at the players interacting with each other. Super, super cool. So my pocketbook thanks you for that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense to a certain degree also, because it's like when somebody feels like they're there and there's no doubt, it's the thing that's happening. That's it translates, and people connect with that. So it's cool to have it be something like you're saying that is so low cost.
I love that. It's great. Well, what's also cool about that is it captures your personality. Like I said at the beginning of the show, you are one of the funniest cat. You have the most infectious laugh. You have fun when you're playing music. You're a badass who doesn't take yourself too terribly seriously.
Exactly.
And it shows up in your branding. But in everything you do. And I think that's an attraction to people. People love that. They feel like they know you. I've gone to your live shows. You've explained to me over the mic how to get the best frequent flyer mile situation going. I mean, you're a weird guy. I love it. And people freak out for that stuff. Is that something that's important to you? I mean, that's just who you are, right?
Yeah. I mean, I learned over years and years of performing how to eventually just be myself on stage. Like I had a regular gig at the Artist Quarter, a jazz club in St. Paul.
Playing with my brother too, right?
Yeah. And
my brother Billy.
I would be down there just playing, not really addressing the audience. It was just like, oh, we're playing jazz. I just got to play. And there's a certain degree of that.
Right.
But what I wasn't doing was giving up a piece of myself as a person. Yep. And when I started doing that, people were connecting to my music in a deeper level. People were enjoying my music more. And then it was like, all right, I don't need to worry about playing the hardest and coolest, the music that's going to make me the baddest guitar player. Because I felt like, I don't know. Eventually it was, I'm just going to play the music I really want to play, and I'm going to be myself, and I'm going to try to be the best version of myself as far as a performer, to let my personality out and to let my playing out in that way. Eventually, it's just started to grow in a thing. And as far as performance goes, what I've watched and kind of found is that a lot of my favorite performers and the best performers, when they're performing, what you are seeing is, this is what I've subscribed to, and it's been my interpretation of a lot of performers, is that what you're seeing is the full version of me amped up by 10 or 15%, right, to really telegraph my personality. So when I get on stage, you get Corey Wong plus 10 or 15% just to really kind of almost, even in my own mind, switch on, like putting on the Superman suit or the Spider-Man costume.
It's entertainment, man.
Yeah. So
it is though.
Yeah. So when I put on that persona, it is me, but it's just an amplified version of me. And then what I've noticed is that it connects in a different way. And I've noticed that with Theo from Wolfpack, with Jack from Wolfpack, who've been frontmen for their things. And yeah, I mean, Ben Rector, similar thing. You see Ben for exactly who he is, amped up 10 or 15% for that live energy.
Right. How would you describe to the people listening what kind of music you play? I mean, I have my ideas of what you would describe it as, but how do you describe what you play?
Yeah, I used to have a good answer for that. Now I'm not sure, but the majority of it is guitar-centric, funk, fun music to have a good time. Yeah. And I mean, for me, like, my guiding light is joy, and to help people to feel like they're having fun, to bring an energy of joy. So, I mean, it might sound lame to say joy music. It sounds like something you see at the end cap of at Borders, but I don't know. It's instrumental funk pop music.
Yeah.
But occasionally I have singers. Say again?
I said, I think that's totally accurate.
Yeah.
I think it is. You talk about joy, man, and by the time this podcast comes out, it'll probably be 4 or 5 weeks since the tragic murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And I want to point out to the listeners the messaging that you've been putting on your social media. And can you tell me how this is all, this terrible event has affected you as an artist and as a dad and as a human?
Yeah. I like that you asked those three things: the artist, the dad, and the human. It pains me to see on a human level, it pains me to see something like that happen and see somebody get murdered. I mean, that's traumatizing to some degree. And it's even more traumatizing to anybody who's black in America who knows that that's a reality, that is something that's more likely to happen to them than you or I.
Yep. And
there has been so much history of inequality and injustice. And, it was how many times do we have to see something like that to happen before there's real change? And for it to be down the road, I mean, that's probably like halfway. Where that happened is halfway between where you and I are right now. I know where you live. I've rehearsed in that basement, in that room that you're sitting. So that's like halfway between where you and I are right now. And, obviously that hits home in a certain way. And as a human, I feel like we need to say Black Lives Matter because there's so much change that needs to happen. And I feel like for those of us that have a platform, it's important that people know how we feel, important for us to tell people how they might be able to either donate to a cause or how they can, in their own communities, help out.
Right.
And I don't know, there's at first it was really sad, heartbreaking. It was really upsetting. It made me angry to see that happen. And then, in some way, I don't know, it made me hopeful after seeing so much of the response, but we know that hope is not a strategy. So it made me want to act on things and find out how I can use my voice as an artist and as a person to help the cause. I don't know. And then as a dad, if this was the first time that I had talked to my kids about this sort of thing, I wouldn't think it would probably, I mean, for some people, it's the first time they're talking to their kids about this.
Yeah.
For me, it's not. And I'm, am I happy that it's not the first time? I know that it's good that it's not the first time that I've talked to my kids about this because, you've met some of my family. I have a Chinese family. Like we're Wongs.
Yeah.
And my kids' cousins, are mixed race. We have black people in our family. We have Asian people in our family, Native American people in our family. So it's just continuing to navigate those conversations and helping them know what has gone on in history, why it's wrong, let them know the realities of things that have happened and what are currently happening and why people are really upset about it and why people have tried so many other ways to stand up for, against these injustices and many of those things not working or many people just not being heard.
Right.
To why it is the way that it is now. But I don't know. I've been trying to wrestle with it and then just figure out like, okay, one thing that I can do is use my financial resources. So I'm giving a month's worth of all my income to a bunch of different causes and organizations and nonprofits. And yeah, I don't know. I don't have an eloquent way to say it, but I'm just trying to, learn myself and figure out how I can help make a difference.
Education is such an incredibly important part of that. I think education for people my age, people my parents' age, kids, being a white guy who plays black music, I feel somewhat insulated as a musician because the black community took me in like that. Mm-hmm. There was no question. And when we would have conversations, they weren't certainly about race relations at all. We just like show up, play the gig. And I've had countless conversations with Stokely. He's actually my guest previous to you, and we talked. He was one of the first people I called. I'm like, really don't know how to help. I really don't know what my first steps are. And you know, I think there's a lot of people out there who feel the same way. What can we do so it just isn't a part of the news cycle and then it just goes away? That, to me, and he explained to me, Stokely said, look, you just calling me and having a conversation, number one, means the world to me. The other people I've spoke with is get educated, because there's so many things that, embarrassingly, I did not know enough about. So I'm educating myself, which means I need to educate my kids. I have grown kids. My kids were protesting. They knew more than I did. They were like, Dad, come on now, let's go. So they were in the know. But then, you know, I don't have grandkids yet, but that talk that you're having with your children and the education that they need to know about, I think, is part of the change. And you're right. Your ability to have a platform and to use it for good and for education, and to putting your money where your mouth is by donating a month's worth of streaming and your entire income. And you're a family guy. You got bills to pay just like anybody else. And COVID has been making us, you know, sit at home. So for you to do that, man, that's really huge. And you off the top of your head have was it 3 places that you're designating money for?
There's a bunch of them. One of them was Equal Justice Initiative. One of them is the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I have my list here.
Yeah, please do. And maybe we can include that in the links on the show as well.
Yeah. George Floyd Memorial Fund, Black Visions Collective, Minnesota, the Know Your Rights Camp, Holy Trinity Lutheran Church, which was like an area where they were kind of a medic station and resource station during all the protests and everything in Minneapolis, a place where people could go and kind of something like a respite. And they were helping with resources and putting things out. A handful of things like that. Like I put a bunch on my Instagram and my Instagram stories. I pinned them to my page. So if you go there, you can see.
What is your Instagram
address? It's at Corey J. Wong, CoryJWong. And I wrote a little thing on each of them, or just copied from their websites what they're about and what they do. And I just felt like that was important to split it up between a bunch of different places. There's a lot of great causes out there, I know. But those ones I seemed to connect with and seemed like they were doing really good work. So I'm down, you know? Like giving up a lot of income, you know, or like a 1/12 of my income, you know, by 1 month of the year. You know, I feel like it's the least I could do to stretch my own resources. If it means our family's a little less comfortable in our finances, so be it. And I'm just trying to use that as the example and just put my money where my mouth is. This is what I believe in, and here's my commitment of this, and not just this month, but a long-term commitment, because as we know from hundreds of years of things happening, it can't just be here's what's now. I really do believe that it's a long-term thing, and it's going to be a lot of reconciliation, you know, beyond our
not going to happen overnight, is it?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Corey, I commend you on that, man. That's super cool, and I figured as much, because you are that's who you are as a man and as a father and as a human. Those 3 things again. So let me carefully transition into Music on the Run. Okay, so you are on the road. Well, not right now, but you are normally on the road. Quite a bit. Now, what I want to know is, how do you keep that striped shirt without a big, ice cream belly going over the top of it? Do you do anything? Do you have any special routines? Because that's really what the show is about as well. Not only getting behind the music and behind you as a family man, but we want to know, how do you handle the road? So fill us in on what a day looks like.
depends on who I'm touring with or how we're going around. With Wolfpack, we fly everywhere, and our schedule is pretty easy. We don't travel with any gear in Wolfpack. I just bring my little pedal board and my guitar and whatever other personal items, and like my laptop and just a little remote recording rig and my clothes, whatever. So with that, it's pretty chill. We stay in Airbnbs together as a band because it's fun to be together.
A band house.
Yeah.
No.
And we just don't get to spend a lot of time together. So anytime we are together, it's really special. It's almost sacred in some way where we really, start to feel more like a family unit. And with Wolfpack, we all eat pretty healthy.
Yeah.
And when I'm on the road with Corey Wong, I eat pretty healthy. With that, we've been traveling in a van and trailer, so that's a little more grueling of a process, and we're bringing around gear, setting up, and all that. With Wolfpack, backline companies will come, normally help set up the gear, and stagehands are helping get things going. We get on stage, sound check, do the thing, and it's pretty easy. With my gig, we're loading and unloading all of our own gear. It's a longer day, right? And if we're in a van, that means we're not traveling while we're sleeping. We sleep in hotels, wake up, drive for 4 hours, then arrive, load, and all that, blah, blah, blah. But as far as on the road, how to stay healthy, I live a pretty healthy lifestyle. Like, I try to eat mostly a plant-based diet. If I'm drinking alcohol, I don't do it in excess.
Yep.
I like to have a couple glasses of wine or 2 beers, but I don't really go overboard. Maybe, a couple nights on tour, we go out and have some fun, but it's never going overboard. And it's never, we don't do drugs. I have a pretty strict policy about not drinking before the gigs or on the gig. I just don't like that. I know other bands feel way differently about that, but I don't feel like it's ever helping to be drinking before or during a gig.
Yeah.
I know for myself, it has only ever hindered my performance. So
you think you sound great.
Yeah. So I ask that of the band, and it's like, okay, if you want to have a drink with dinner, sure, whatever. But I don't like it's just, I want everybody to be in a clear mindset, and, kind of sending that message through the rest of the band. I don't tell them they can't, have fun after the gig, but it's just when we're on the job, we're on the job. And when I'm on the road, I treat it like it's my job, because it is. And it's only fair to the fans that pay money to come see us that I am in my best physical form and shape, that I'm in my best state of mind. And if I'm eating unhealthy, if I'm doing drugs and drinking, I'm not going to be in my best physical shape, and it's going to mess me up, and it's not going to, it feels unfair to the audience for me to do that. And I respect my audience too much to do that. So I eat healthy. I sleep at least 8 hours a night. That's a priority. And sometimes it drives my tour manager nuts. He's like, we have to hit the road by 8 o'clock. And I'm like, bro, it's 1 o'clock right now. We're leaving at 9. It's like, but I'm like, I need 8 hours.
Yep.
And
good for you, man.
So yeah, because I've prioritized that as well, it really helps. And yeah, I work out. I do yoga almost every day, and I try to get on a bike. There's a lot of really great bike rentals, just like those city bikes in most major cities now. So I can get out on a bike. Instead of taking an Uber to go to the coffee shop, I sometimes like to take a bike. Yeah, those sort of things.
Cool. That's super helpful. I think that's inspirational to people who are out there and trying to keep it all together, because I know those are all stress relievers, especially yoga. I think I've told you before, I'm probably the tightest man ever in life, and yoga isn't for me, but running is for me. Yeah. So maybe one day when I grow up, I'll try to yoga. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The other thing that I noticed about you is that you have your family unit is so important to you. Explain to me the team methodology of when you go on the road and how that all works.
Well, A lot of it I learned from you directly. We had so many conversations as I was starting to tour. You know, you were one of the main people I was reaching out to, asking like, look, man, I want to make sure that I can keep this thing together. You've done this for a lot of years. What's some advice? And you gave me some great advice. A lot of it being, I think the main one, the overarching principle is, I'm not leaving town because I don't want to be with you. I'm leaving town because this is part of my work and I need to play in different cities. I can't just play in Minneapolis every night. And I'm not leaving town because I don't want to be with you. I'm not leaving town because I don't love you. I'm leaving town because this is a big portion of my job. And just for my kids and for my wife to know that obviously is a huge thing. And then for the communication to be open. My wife is really great. We're fortunate that she's kind of a classic firstborn of 3. She can run the house.
Right.
She's, thrives in that environment and, is comfortable running the house. Of course, it's easier sometimes when I'm around.
Sometimes.
And, yeah. Sometimes there's a reacclimation period when I'm coming back from tour for her, the kids, and me. Mm-hmm. And, just trying to navigate the communication when I'm on the road. Not always the best, but again, it's just some of those principles of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
The family unit is so important. I mean, and I'm so happy that I was able to give you a couple nuggets here or there, man. But it is all about communication, mm-hmm. and divide and conquer, and for the good of the many, as Spock would say.
Yeah.
You have some really fun thing that you've been doing. I mean, you've been doing so many things. Your own thing, Vulfpeck, Fearless Flyers. But tell me briefly, because I'm going to let you go here, because I want to be good to you here with your time. Talk to me about The Late Show with Colbert.
Yeah. So I met Jon Batiste, who's the music director, band leader for The Late Show. We met on Live from Here.
Right,
yeah.
with Chris.
Yeah, with Chris Thile.
Thile. Yeah, I'm not can never pronounce his name. Sorry.
So what was Prairie Home Companion? Chris Thile is the host of that, but there was a week that he couldn't make it or something. Jon Batiste was the guest host, and I was in the house band, and we just hit it off immediately. I showed up to rehearsal, to sound check rehearsal. And it was him and a couple other guys. Not everybody was there yet. I started plugging in, playing. He turns around and goes, "Ooh, nice." Boom. We didn't even say hi yet. Like, he was playing on the piano when I walked in, just kind of figuring out some of his own stuff. I plugged in, started getting my thing going. We just connected immediately musically. And then we hit it off on a personal level, started doing some collaborations. We talked about working on some tunes together for my record. He was saying he was working on some of his own music he wanted me to record on.
Wow.
And he invited me to start playing on The Late Show with him. And eventually it just led to, you should come out for the week. Just play on the show for the week. And then, it was eventually like, for a while, it was basically 1 week a month I was going out there and playing, which is really fun. I like doing that. It's different than the routine that I have here. Like, there's a whole routine there. And it was fun to jump in for a week and do that.
You also just came out with a podcast yourself called, is it Wong Notes?
Wong Notes.
Perfect, of course.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about that. That's sponsored by Fender, I believe.
Yeah. So it's presented by Fender and Premier Guitar Magazine, which is super fun because...
Wow. Good for you, man. That's so great.
It's amazing. I can't believe it. It's really fun that they asked me to be the host for this thing. And to just get to interview so many of my heroes. Like, George Benson is my hero. And they came to me and they're like,
he's an amazingly nice guy, by the way.
Yeah, you've worked with him a ton, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it was just, they were like, all right, here's our top 5 list. Give us your top 5 list. And then we just hammered away at that, found some other people that we were really interested in. And we have, this first season is 12 episodes, getting to interview Benson, Eric Johnson, Satriani. There's so many amazing musicians that I got to interview. Bela Fleck, It's like just insane to be able to have these conversations with my heroes.
Yeah.
With, talking about guitar stuff, talking about being an artist. And a lot of what this podcast is, I'm not just asking questions that Premier Guitar or Fender wants me to ask. They're like, it's your podcast. Do whatever, ask them whatever you would want to ask them.
So you're being curious.
Yes.
That's all you're doing. You're like, I want to know this.
That I want to ask them.
Of course.
And so much of it is about artistry and how they found their voice, what it means to be an icon or a legend on an instrument, and how do you, in some objective way, get to that, and how do you, in the subjective way, how does something become somebody or something like they've become? So, and also stories. Benson has stories. Man.
Yes, he does. Hey, do you notice, since you've done so many of these now as well, I'm always looking for a common thread, and I'm going to ask you the same question when we get done here, but what is the one thing that these successful artists have in common? Why are they where they're at? What do you think is there one thing that is the thread for being successful?
Beyond just an insane amount of dedication and calling, I think for most of them, it's finding their own artistic identity and voice. And that's what I ask a lot of them about. It's like, how do you develop your voice? What is it that makes when I'm asking people, what is it that makes a guitar, like what makes an iconic guitar player? What makes somebody a legendary guitar player? So much of it is just like they have a thing. They have a voice and they have a sound. They have something that uniquely, when you hear it, it's them. When you hear George Benson, it's Benson. When you hear John Scofield, within 3 notes, you know that it's Scofield, or if it's somebody doing the Scofield thing. And it's like, I know if it's somebody doing the Scofield thing or if it's Scofield. The fact that there is a Scofield thing is insane. Yeah. The fact that I can identify when it's him, that's insane.
Guess what? There is a Corey Wong thing. There is. You found it. Dude, you found it. And that could be the hardest thing an artist, believe it or not, has to find. You think that just comes. Well, the talent may come, but when we grow up, we listen to such a wide array of people and we emulate. But then what exactly becomes your voice? Corey, you found it 1,000-fold, man. And I'm just so proud to call you my buddy and to watch what you've done in such a short amount of time. It's not like you didn't pay your dues. Now, I'm not saying that because I know you did. But it's just been such a pleasure to watch you succeed, my friend, really. Let me ask you one last question before we get out of here. Since we might have some young musos on there, give them some advice. How can they do what you do?
Sure. Well, like you said, I do feel I'm very fortunate. I do feel like I finally found my voice and my thing. And I didn't realize it until I played on some records, and some of my friends, like Theo from Wolfpack, one day called me. He's like, dude, he left me a voicemail. He's like, hey, we don't need to chat or anything. I just wanted to say I listened to the new Dave Barnes record, and I know that it's you on guitar. I'm not asking. I'm telling you. I know that it's you. You have a sound, man. You have such a thing. That's so cool. I knew within seconds that it was you. It's like, wow, that's cool. And I had so many of my other friends just say the same thing when they've heard me on other records, or when I'd be at sessions and people would say, hey, just give me your Corey Wong thing. Do the Corey Wong thing. It's like,
see?
Oh, okay.
I told you.
It's like, wow, that's really cool. And the thing about that is that the encouraging thing and the piece of advice that I would have to young musos is I didn't have that until I was 31 years old. I wanted it so bad when I was 22. I wanted my voice, but I was exploring other things. I was trying to sound like Pat Metheny. Then I was trying to sound like Prince, then I was trying to sound like, I don't know. And I tried to learn and absorb all these other voices, all these other identities. And eventually what I realized is that my own personality should come out in my playing. And well, actually, it was one of the most pivotal things was at Bunkers. Michael Bland looks over to me after set break. Him and Sonny T were playing and we were jamming. Super fun thing. He's like, Corey, come here. And you know how Michael is. If he likes you, he's going to be ragging on you. That's his way of letting you know you're in. Is if he's pushing your buttons, trying to make you better. And he goes, Corey, you sound amazing. Whatever. You got to work on a few things. Look, quit trying to be up here sounding like Prince. If Prince comes in here, he doesn't want to hear you sounding like him because you're never going to sound as good as Prince. You sound great, but you're only going to sound as good as you are at being you. And he really encouraged me to just quit trying to sound like somebody else. Try to sound like me. And he was ragging on me for a while about that. And it was like, why did I not just know that? And sure, I'm an amalgamation of all my influences and all the other voices and things that I've absorbed. All the Benson licks I've learned, all the Schofield licks I've learned, all the Prince material, all the Paul Jackson Jr., David T. There's so many things that I've taken in that eventually are now my voice, that, okay, if I didn't learn all that Green Day material or Weezer material and all the Prince material, I wouldn't sound the way that I do now. So
that's right.
It is a journey to, as cheesy as that sounds, as cliche as that sounds, to find your own voice. But if you don't feel like you have your voice and you're 22, 23 years old, it doesn't mean you're not going to find it. You know this full well. It's going to take you a lot of time to get to that realization, or the sooner you realize, all right, I'm going to find my voice. This is what makes me unique as a person. This is what my guiding light is. This is what I want to say, not just as an artist, but as a person. That's going to influence your sound. And then just to have a relentless pursuit to find what that is and hone that.
Right. Killer advice. Bro, thank you so much for spending an hour and 10 minutes with us.
Of course.
I know you're busy, but it's so fun to chat with you, man. And I know my listeners are gonna eat this up. What a fun time to spend with you. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you, man. Anytime. I'm excited about. I started today. I was starting to listen through the Dave King episode, and I got to get through that one. But
you two need to get together. By the way, you're both absolute knuckleheads. You need to hang.
I'm intimidated by Dave. He's such a strong personality. I grew up. I was as a teenager going to the Artist Quarter and seeing Happy Apple in the front row, just like, oh my gosh, he's insane.
He's great. We should have a little maybe Minneapolis Music on the Run hang here in the backyard. You know what it's all about back there. We'll have a little barbecue, a little celebration. Tell us where we can find you, Corey. Give us all the social media.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram. I mean, you just search my name on Instagram or Facebook. I got a YouTube channel, all kinds of videos and whatnot. All the videos that Paul was talking about, from the ones that took me tons of hours to the ones that are just one shot on an iPhone that you just sync up. Yeah, I mean, I'm on all those platforms. Find me anywhere.
Beautiful. Thanks, Corey. That is it. That's episode 16 of Music on the Run with my buddy Corey Wong. Thank you so much. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Ow! Music on the Run was hosted by yours truly, St. Paul Peterson. Edited and produced by my buddy Davide Razzo. Video editing by Ivan Sebastianov. And a very special thanks to the people who financially support this podcast. And remember, music is a real job.